So that's the one that Carlos was talking about.
Yeah, I can see it.
The biggest problem we have right now is that big black boulder on top is actually holding the other one from falling off because there is nothing underneath it. And if something goes wrong, that whole thing's gonna come in, which kills the divers. They're dead. That's it.
Dustin stood at the edge of a canyon that had crushed miners for over a century. Below him lay the remnants of failure, twisted steel, abandoned tools, rusted dreams scattered like warnings. He wasn't just after gold, he was after the truth. And what he uncovered would shock everyone who heard the story. Deep inside a collapsed passage, sealed off for more than 100 years, was proof that the richest rewards are often hidden behind the deadliest obstacles. This wasn't just hostile ground. This was Earth that fought back. From the very first day of the season, Dustin felt it. He had faced brutal weather, failing machinery, raging rivers, but nothing like this. Locals whispered its name with fear, the Devil's Throat. They didn't say it lightly. It was a warning, a curse. If you want to follow every twist, discovery, and shocking moment of Dustin's journey, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the story of the Devil's Throat is only getting started. This wasn't just another canyon shaped by time. It felt furious, alive. The water never rested, its relentless roar slamming against the narrow rock walls, echoing like a drumbeat of past tragedies. Men had entered here and vanished, and the canyon remembered every one of them. Old survey maps didn't even bother detailing the area. Just notes scrawled in the margins. Unstable, dangerous currents, not worth it. But to Dustin, those words weren't discouragement. They were a challenge. He'd spent too many years chasing rumors, too many seasons breaking himself for scraps. If there was even a slim chance that untouched gold still lay hidden here, turning back wasn't an option. He was honest with his crew. If they could survive this canyon, they wouldn't just strike gold, they'd make history. Their descent was tense. Every step deeper felt like the canyon was closing in on them. The ground was a nightmare. Slick stone, loose gravel, hazards everywhere. One wrong move could end everything. Inside, sound behaved differently. The air was thick, trapped. Every noise exploded. Boots scraping, ropes groaning, layered over the violent crash of the river. It was overwhelming, suffocating. The crew couldn't stop talking about the last operation that tried their luck here. They'd come prepared with massive dredges and heavy machinery. It didn't matter. A flash flood wiped out their camp, leaving their equipment mangled along the riverbank like a graveyard of ambition. Dustin had read the old journals, handwritten notes from miners nearly 100 years ago. Their words spoke of a canyon that devoured men whole. Instead of fear, those pages fueled him. This place didn't scare him. It dared him. Gear tightened, harnesses checked, work began. The deeper they pushed, the more the canyon resisted. Equipment had to be lowered piece by piece on cables screaming under the strain. Even solid steel wasn't safe. Machines sank instantly into mud. Hydraulic lines seized. Pumps clogged non-stop as silt and rock invaded every moving part. It felt personal, like the canyon was actively trying to erase them. Then came the rock slides. At first, just pebbles bouncing off helmets. Then, without warning, entire walls began shedding tons of stone. Tools were dropped. Men ran. Dustin counted heads every time, bracing for disaster. They survived. Barely. Then disaster nearly struck. A main winch cable, thick as a man's arm, snapped with a blast that echoed like a gunshot. A massive dredge swung free, a wrecking ball of steel aimed straight at the crew. Time froze. Inches separated life from death as it slammed into the canyon wall and dangled there, swaying. Everyone looked to Dustin, expecting the call to retreat. It never came. Supplies were dwindling, machines were failing. Most leaders would have ended the season right there. Dustin did the opposite. He gathered the crew and made an announcement that stunned them all. Their original target, 2,000 ounces, was no longer enough. He raised the goal to 3,500 ounces. Silence followed. It sounded insane, or maybe brilliant. This wasn't just a challenge anymore. This was a battle, and it wasn't finished. While the crew struggled to process the new target, Dustin's instincts were already pulling him elsewhere. Beneath the roaring water, he felt it. Hidden spaces, buried secrets. He decided to take a risk no one else would. Without much explanation, he ordered in equipment never used in conditions this brutal, submersible sonar drones. These weren't toys, they were advanced machines designed for deep-sea mapping and rescue missions, each costing tens of thousands of dollars. Dropping them into the violent current seemed pointless. The river tossed them like debris. But Dustin pushed deeper, eyes locked on the flickering screens. Slowly, shapes formed. Then everything changed. The sonar revealed a void, a massive hollow beneath the riverbed, a collapsed tunnel branching away from the main channel. A passage no one knew existed. Dense clusters glowed beneath the rubble. Shapes that could only mean one thing: mineral-rich rock sealed away under water and stone. The geometry was wrong for nature. Too straight, too deliberate. Someone had built this. Dustin grabbed the old journals again. They spoke of a legendary gold drift buried deep beneath the canyon. For decades, it was dismissed as fantasy. Too dangerous, too deep, too impossible. But now, the proof was right in front of them. The 3D mapping traced a vein-like passage through solid rock, packed with glowing pockets that screamed quartz and gold. The crew argued. Some said opening a tunnel under a raging river was a death sentence. Others just stared at the screen, finally seeing what Dustin had believed all along: a fortune powerful enough to change every single one of their lives. Dustin ended the argument with one decisive call. They were done chasing crumbs in the river. No more panning for leftovers. They were going after the tunnel. Whatever fear had stopped miners 100 years ago, they were going to confront it face to face. The plan was insane, dangerous, almost suicidal, but it was also the only real chance they had at striking it big. The days that followed blurred into non-stop chaos. Steel cages were lowered to stabilize the canyon's weakest sections. Massive anchors were drilled deep into solid rock. Slowly, carefully, the site transformed from a death trap into something resembling a stronghold. And inch by inch, a shaft opened into the hidden passage below. It felt like punching a hole straight through time. When the descent finally began, everything shifted. Headlamps carved sharp beams through total darkness. The air turned colder, heavier, damp with every foot they dropped. This place felt haunted. They found relics frozen in place, rusted lanterns fused to the stone, shattered shovels, corroded nails scattered like remains. Someone's initials were scratched into the wall, their edges softened by decades of decay. Proof that men had once worked here and never returned. The tunnel went far deeper than expected, more than 100 feet straight down. The floor was a slurry of icy mud and water. They were intruders now, stepping into a story that had ended in failure long before they arrived. And that forgotten darkness was hiding more than memories. At the bottom of the shaft, a flashlight beam swept across the wall, and time stopped. Quartz, bright, clean veins cutting through black rock, glowing under the light. At first, it looked like frost. Then the beam shifted, Gold flashed back at them. Not dust, not specks. Real, visible gold. Flakes shining directly out of the stone. No one spoke, no one breathed. A geologist dropped to his knees, his voice shaking as he said it out loud. This was a bonanza, the kind of discovery that turns ordinary miners into legends. That single word snapped everyone back to life. A makeshift sluice was dragged into position, cobbled together from whatever gear they could get down the shaft. The men worked knee-deep in freezing black water, shoveling rock by hand, feeding the machine non-stop. Their breath fogged the air. The rhythm was relentless. Shovel, dump, wash, repeat. Every man driven by the glow of gold, staring back at them from the walls. Hours disappeared. Then the first cleanup tray came up, heavy, dripping with black sand. And sitting in the bottom, blazing against dark steel, was the gold. 52 ounces, in a single run, nearly $100,000, pulled from the earth in less than a day. The tunnel exploded with cheers. Their voices echoed so violently it felt like the canyon itself was reacting. After the danger, the breakdowns, the close calls, this was proof. The canyon wasn't just cursed, it was real, and it was richer than any of them had ever imagined. Exhaustion vanished, replaced by pure adrenaline. They pushed harder, shoveling non-stop. Every cleanup came back heavier than the last. For 3 brutal days, the operation ran without pause. When they finally counted it all, the numbers were unreal. Over 2,000 ounces of gold, nearly $4 million pulled from a single location in under 72 hours. It felt impossible. But the canyon wasn't finished. Generators failed one by one, coughing into silence. Instead of quitting, the crew adapted. Hand-cranked pumps kept water moving. The work was savage, punishing, but it kept the sluices alive. On the 4th day, Dustin ordered another sonar scan. If this much gold was coming out this fast, he needed to know what lay beneath their feet. What the data revealed didn't seem real. The quartz vein didn't stop near the shaft. It continued, stretching deep beneath the canyon floor. A glowing artery of gold, running for more than a mile underground. Core samples confirmed it. Every drill pull came back loaded with high-grade gold. Geologists estimated the value at $85 million, possibly more. One of the richest modern discoveries in Alaska. The gold changed everything. Overnight, the crew stopped thinking like miners scraping by and started thinking like men standing on top of something massive. But with every ounce they pulled from the tunnel, the canyon seemed to grow more restless, as if it knew its secret was being stolen. Sleep became almost impossible. The roar of the river echoed endlessly through the rock, vibrating through their bones. Every shift underground felt heavier, the air thicker, the walls closer. Small rock pops, natural pressure releases, made men flinch, hands snapping to helmets. The canyon never let them forget where they were. Dustin didn't celebrate. Not yet. He'd seen too many operations collapse right at the finish line. Rich ground didn't mean safe ground. In fact, it often meant the opposite. On the 5th day, the warning signs began. Water levels rose without explanation, creeping higher around their boots even when the pumps were running full tilt. The tunnel walls started to weep. Thin streams of icy water carving new paths through the mud. Instruments showed subtle shifts in pressure, nothing dramatic, but enough to put everyone on edge. Then came the sound. A deep, distant groan rolled through the tunnel, like the earth stretching its back. It wasn't a rock slide. It wasn't machinery. It was something slower, heavier. The crew froze. Moments later, a shockwave rippled through the shaft, Helmets rattled, lights flickered. Somewhere deeper in the darkness, stone cracked. Dustin ordered an immediate halt. No gold was worth burying men alive. Fresh sonar scans told a disturbing story. The massive quartz vein was stable, but the surrounding rock wasn't. Centuries of water pressure had hollowed out weak zones above the tunnel. The collapsed passage that hid the gold had also been acting like a plug. Now that it was open, the balance was changing. They were racing the canyon itself. The choice was brutal. Pull out now and walk away with millions, or push deeper and risk everything for the full fortune beneath their feet. The crew argued hard. Some said they'd already won. Others said this was the chance of a lifetime, the kind that never comes twice. Dustin listened quietly, eyes locked on the glowing sonar map. That golden vein wasn't just a deposit. It was a promise and a threat. He made the call. They would keep mining, but only as long as the canyon allowed it. Work resumed with surgical precision. Reinforcements were doubled. Shifts were shortened. Escape routes were cleared and re-cleared every few hours. No one worked alone. No one rushed. Still, the canyon kept pushing back. A sudden surge nearly flooded the shaft, forcing an emergency evacuation. Minutes later, a section of ceiling collapsed exactly where they had been standing. Dust choked the air. Rocks thundered into the water below. If they'd been 10 minutes slower, the story would have ended there. When the dust settled, the tunnel was changed. Narrower, angrier, but still holding gold. Against every instinct, they went back in. Each cleanup tray felt heavier, not just with gold, but with pressure. Every man knew they were gambling borrowed time. Yet the gold kept coming, thick and bright, as if daring them to stop. By the end of the week, the tally climbed higher than anyone dared say out loud. The original 3,500-ounce goal was shattered. The canyon had given up more than expected and taken its payment in fear, exhaustion, and near disaster. Finally, the call came down from above. Weather systems were shifting. Meltwater upstream threatened flash flooding. This time, even Dustin didn't argue. They sealed the tunnel. Steel plates were bolted into place. Supports were locked down. The canyon was closed, not conquered, but paused, like a sleeping beast. As the crew climbed out for the last time, no one spoke. They were alive. They were rich, and they all knew how close they'd come to never seeing daylight again. Back at camp, when the final numbers were confirmed, silence fell. The gold was real. The fortune was real, and so was the danger. Dustin stood alone, looking back toward the canyon, already knowing one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The Devil's Throat had revealed its treasure, but it hadn't finished telling its story. And next season, it might demand a much higher price. They had found the fortune, but the question remained, did the canyon really let them win? Or was this just another kind of curse? Like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments, was this legendary gold a blessing, or the beginning of something far more dangerous?